This section is on leader design and or custom leader building for certain situations. By all means, it's not the only way to do things. Hopefully it's just some insight that will help you as an angler on your own in the future. It is kind of done on a chalkboard design here. Certainly not fancy, but hopefully helpful. We'll talk a little bit about the standard dry fly leader to begin with. We'll talk about two different conditions: low and clear conditions and normal conditions. Well, typically most western streams during the spring and early summer, even into midsummer, will have normal conditions. Generally from midsummer to late summer into fall, we'll have lower and clear water conditions. So if you're fishing a very low and clear water condition, a longer leader is a good idea. If you're fishing kind of typical bigger water, not too clear conditions, a shorter leader is appropriate. If I were to choose one leader on most western streams in most conditions, I would choose a 7.5 foot leader that terminates in 3X. And why would I do that? Because a 7.5 foot 3X leader can be modified to be longer by just adding tippet. You could add 2 feet to 3 feet of 4X or 5X tippet to it, and now you'd have yourself a longer leader for maybe a more delicate presentation. Yet, at 7.5 foot 3X, the way you purchased it, you could throw a big dry fly with it, or perhaps even a streamer. So when it comes to I would say the most effective leader to purchase, it would probably be a 7.5 foot 3X leader, in my opinion. Let's talk a little bit about dry droppers. That's the leader on the top there. Let's say you're going to be casting in the wind from a boat all day long, and you're going to be casting big dry flies with a dropper. So if you started with a 9 foot leader and you added 3 feet of dropper on, now you're looking at a 12 foot leader. Not a very effective leader to cast from or cast with from a boat on a windy day under trees, So, however, if you were fishing on a spring creek or a low and clear water situation in the fall, that 9 foot leader might be the appropriate one. Okay, so for all practical purposes, most western streams during normal conditions, the 7.5 foot leader seems to be the most, I would say, the most appropriate leader to purchase if I wanted to run a dry dropper. However, in low and clear water conditions, we will add that to that dimension, meaning longer, and so the quote unquote spook factor is less. So we've talked a little bit about the standard dry fly leader, and we've talked a little bit about the dry dropper leader, and those are the ones listed up there on the top two. Really, now let's talk about the custom nymph leader. And a custom nymph leader, there's some parameters we need to discuss before we talk about this leader, so let's do that right now. The first dimension or parameter we need to talk about is the fact that the thicker the leader, the slower it sinks. So let's say you bought a 9 foot leader that terminates in 3X or 4X. There's only a certain portion of that leader that is 3X or 4X because it tapers, because that's the manufacturer taper leaders taper from thin at the terminal end to thick at the butt end. So you really don't have a large percentage of your leader that is thin. And remember, the thinner your leader, the quicker it sinks. So let's design a leader that has a large portion of the leader that's thin so that it sinks quick. Okay, and that's what we've done here. So in essence, this diagram here on the bottom end here is talking about a custom nymph leader, and we'll zoom in on it here a little so you can see it better. And it is basically designed of two different major sections. First of all, we have the butt and mid section, which is one section, and then we have the tippet section, which is the other section. Let's talk a little bit about the butt and mid section to begin with. The butt and mid section is divided into 3 portions, and you can see the dots in the butt and mid section there that kind of shows you the division dimensions, and the actual terminology is down below. 3 feet of 0.019 is 30 pound. 1 foot of that button midsection is 0.015, 18 pound, and 1 foot of that section is 0.011 of 12 pounds. So in essence, the 5-foot section is comprised of 3 different dimensions of leader, and shown right there. Now we talk a little bit about the tippet section, and that happens to be 4 feet of the leader, and it's designated, meaning the transition between the button midsection and the tippet section is designated by that slash in the middle of the leader there. So the tippet is designed to start off with 2 feet of 0.008 in diameter, which is 3x, and then 2 feet of whatever diameter tippet, final end of the tippet that you want. For example, if you're fishing a number 20, I would probably be using 5x or 6x. If you're fishing a number 14, I'd be using the 4x, and if you're fishing a number 8, I might be just using that 3x fluorocarbon that we've got listed there, or 3x in diameter. Typically, when we're nymphing, we're using fluorocarbon as well. So what we've got here is a design leader that a large portion of it, the tippet section, is very skinny, and that again sinks quicker than thicker leader. And you can also note the dots in the leader there are those are knot locations, and that's especially the final dot is a great place to place your weight if you need to add weight to your leader. And then the knot locations are also good places to put your indicator so that the indicator does not slide. At times, certain indicators will slide down the leader, but if they're placed above a strategic knot, then they will not slide. So we have designed here a leader that that really isn't probably the most functional when it comes to graceful casting. However, it is the most functional when it comes to nymphing, and nymphing requires your leader to sink quick, and the thinner your leader, the quicker it sinks. So that's what we have designed a leader to do here. So most western streams, you're fishing anywhere from 2 to 6 feet depth, because that's what most western streams are, is 2 to 6 feet in depth. I mean, granted, there are holes that are deeper, but I mean, most of the water or a large percentage of the water that we're fishing is 2 to 6 feet deep. So if we're promoting a proper slackline drift, utilizing an indicator, then the leader we have designed here and utilizing the knot locations to place our indicator will make for a very effective nymph leader. Hopefully helpful here, and if you ever have any questions, make sure to give us a jingle. We'll be happy to answer them, and we look forward to seeing you waterside.